happening.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Hi,
Can you
Kathy.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Great. Yeah, so we've got 21 attendees in the audience right now. Hello, everybody. Thanks for signing on early. And we've got 14 of us listed as panelists. So it's me and Jason, Kathy, Scott, Wanda, Brooks, Dibby, Elise. We've got Ricardo, who's translating. He's our interpreter. We've got Captain Wolf on. We've got Bert Whitaker from Regional Parks. We've got Marty Campbell and Mike Lair on. Mike's from State Parks, I believe. And there's a 707 call-in number, 707-695-4595. May I ask who that is?
Hey, that's Officer Shock with the Highway Patrol.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Can you say it again?
CHP, Officer Shock on the Sonoma Coast resident post.
Great, thank you so much.
My neighbor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Does Wanda want to log in? Do the reps want to log in with video?
It looks like I'm on the video. Am I?
Yes, you are.
You're not in the gallery. Am I not seeing it all?
I'm sitting right next to you, Scott,
I got it.
on my gallery.
It's me.
Switch to
There you
gallery.
go.
Oh my goodness. That's cool. Okay.
Whew. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Somebody's watching TV.
Hollywood Squares.
That's so true.
Okay, we're gonna begin shortly if people feel ready. I'm gonna ask Jason to just start off muting everybody if that's possible, and then we'll go ahead and turn people on as they're needed. And let's see. Oops. Great.
Almost no medical facilities at all. The largest hospital nearby at capacity. Tonight, the reality from inside what we haven't seen.
Scott, is that background noise yours or, oh, there it is.
I have no background noise.
Okay, let's see.
I might have some. Can you hear it? It's a TV.
Yeah, I can hear it. Do you mind?
Oh, okay.
Or
Hang on.
I can turn you off. I mean, I just had you on because I know you'll be doing roll shortly.
Yeah. Let me. Or just turn it down, Ed. Ed broke his fibula and his ankle, and he had surgery yesterday, so he's laid up in the Barca Lounger
Oh, okay.
watching a little TV. But he's going to turn it down.
Okay.
Boy, that really picks up.
Yeah.
How's that?
That's great, I think. Thank you.
That's okay. Okay.
Maybe not.
Okay, so I think we are ready. let's go ahead. Scott, whenever you feel ready, I think we can go ahead and kick off the meeting.
Okay. I'd like to say it's been 4 months since we last met. Have been separated from one another, yet somehow I think we're closer than before. Thoughtful and careful people have charted our path. From them, for them, I am grateful. I feel safer for their efforts. Yet we have far to go. We intend to have all boats rise with the new tide. Let's get started. So, do we pledge of allegiance? Or just next? I guess we call to order.
And you want to do the pledge first?
Okay, let me get my, let's get a flag for us.
Oh, there we go. The flag. There we are. Look at that. What a great background.
So I'll
I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
The
of
flag,
the States of
the United States.
America
Republic for which it stands,
and one nation under God,
indivisible.
visible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I can go ahead and do the roll call, Mr. Chair, if that's okay with you.
Nance, before you jump in, maybe I'll do a quick just overview about the meeting technology, just to make sure everybody's on board. I did a little bit of talking before the meeting started, but basically this meeting is taking place on Zoom. Scott's our chair and is facilitating the meeting. We do have Spanish language interpretation, and so Ricardo Ibarra is kind enough to do that again for us today. For Spanish language speakers, it says interpretation on your screen at the bottom, and you can select Spanish language. Para las personas que necesitan entender en español, pueden seleccionar interpretación abajo de la página. And then for members of the audience, during time when there's public comment, you'll be able to raise your hand electronically through the Zoom application if you're signed on with a screen. And I'll be able to call on you and unmute you for you to ask your questions. And the format will be that you'll have 2 minutes to ask your questions or make your comments. Additionally, if you have called into the Zoom, you may press *9 to raise your hand, and then I'll be able to also call on you and unmute you if you have comments or questions. We are also streaming to Facebook Live. The official channel for people to ask questions and comments is here on the Zoom, but we'll also be keeping track of the Facebook questions and bring them over here whenever they're relevant or possible to incorporate them in. Thanks so much for joining us electronically. I know it's not the same, but at least for such a long coast, it saves some of you a drive. So I'm all set if you're ready to jump in, Nance, with the roll call.
Sure. Scott Farmer?
Here.
And what I ask for people is when we're doing roll, if you're just raise your hand that you're here. And also for when we're taking a vote on a motion, I'll do roll call. And if it's an aye, like you approve, just raise your hand. Okay. So Scott Farmer, Marty Campbell, Cal Harris. Is Cal, he's not on the phone? Okay. Abriana Gomes. Brooks Rooney. I remember your background. Wanda Swenson. There's Wanda. Okay. Dibby Tyler. There's Dibby. Kathy Beck. I see you. Okay. And Shay Casal. Is there anyone that I'm missing that's filling in for the 2 folks that I don't actually see on here? Or are they on the phone somewhere, Leo? Abriana and Cal?
If there's anybody who is on the Mac, but you're not on the panelist screen, but you are on as an attendee, if you raise your hand right now, we can reassign you to panelist. there's a lot of names, but I'm not seeing the two missing folks right now.
Okay, we'll just move on. All right, back to you, Scott.
So approval of the January agenda. Do any of the representatives have any comments about Brooks?
Mute yourself first.
Hang on.
Unmute.
For Brooks Rooney?
Leo, can you unmute Brooks Rooney?
Thank you.
Yes, she should be unmuted.
Oh, there she is. There she is.
I think I'm kind. Okay. Anyway, sorry, Nance, but on page 3 of the minutes, down where my name is Brooks Rooney, anyway, it should be Bodega Bay. You have.
Oh, yes, Bodega. I got the correction. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? I see Kathy Beck.
Okay, same thing. You get my name right at the beginning, and then it's with a K on all the way down.
So Kathy with a K. Okay.
With a C.
With a C. Okay.
And then when you go down to the first page, Bodega Bay is spelled with a small b for bodega.
Oh, I see it. I've corrected
That's
that. Okay, thanks.
Good job.
Oh. Anybody else? Oh, okay, Scott, it's up to you for a motion.
I think Marty has something.
Sorry, Marty.
Unmute Marty Campbell.
I thought we were still approving the agenda and not discussing the minutes. Is that not correct? Because I have some comments about the minutes. Is it time to talk about the minutes, Scott, or are we still approving the agenda?
Let's finish up with the minutes and then we'll do the approval of the agenda. Is that okay?
So I have two comments about the minutes. Let me see if I can find them. The first is on page 2 of the minutes. Under timeline, project launch, it says 17 years ago, preliminary workshop started in 2015. I think something's missing there, either some words or punctuation. So I think that's a typo.
I do too. I don't think it was 17 years ago, was it?
I don't think so.
No.
It may be that the last version of the LCP came out 17 years ago. I'm not so sure that that's correct, but that's the only thing I could think. But the way it's worded now doesn't make any sense.
Seems to me, because I'm not sure, I can either check into it to make sure, but I feel pretty confident that the preliminary workshop started in 2015. I just
Yes,
don't know
yes.
if I can correct the
I-
17-year one.
Yeah,
Is that
I
okay?
think that's correct.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and my second comment is on page 3 of the minutes at the top
Mm-hmm,
in the summary of my comments.
mm-hmm.
The second sentence said, affordable housing is off the charts. And I don't know what that means. And I recall talking about affordable housing to
Right.
say that there wasn't enough, but I didn't say it was off the charts. So just strike that sentence, please.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
will. Okay.
And that's
Anything
it.
else?
Yep.
So should we go back to approval of the agenda and then catch the minutes as we go down, or complete the minutes now?
I'm open to either. You might want to finish this topic since we started. Might as well just complete it, I think.
So
Is that okay?
yes. Do I have any motion to approve the changes? Brooks first. Second. Kathy? Oh, go ahead, Brooks.
No, I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Who was second?
Kathy Beck.
Kathy.
So
I need to take roll.
All in-
Oh, we could, do you want to do all in favor? Just raise your hand instead of a roll call. Elise, I don't know if there's a formality there. I know we had a call roll at the last one, but if everybody wants to raise their hand, I would be good with that. Are you good? You're good with that? Okay.
Yes, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Did you get that, Nance?
Yeah, I got it. Motion carried, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So back on track, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? Marty Kimball
I move we approve the agenda.
and Dibby Tyler?
Second.
Okay. So
Favor?
all in favor, raise your hand. And opposed? Did you get that, Nance?
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Statements of conflict of interest, if any. Does anyone in the council have a conflict of interest? Seeing no one raising their hand, there's no conflict of interest. We have no correspondence, correct? Nance?
I do not see any. I do not receive any. I don't think we do.
And we approved the minutes from January 15th already. Now we're moving into our public comment. We used to have this at the end, but this time we're going to have it at this time. And Leo went over the process of people raising their hand or chatting. So we're going to first have the reps. We have the reps speak at this time, Elise? Or Nance?
I think, I think this is just public comment.
Oh,
So,
Anything they
this
want
is
to
just
comment on
public
that's
comment.
not on the agenda, right?
Yes, we'd like to, let me read this. This time is for comment from the public regarding matters of general interest, not on the agenda, related to the Sonoma Coast MAC business pursuant to the Brown Act. No action or discussion is taken on public comment unrelated to the agenda. Comments may be limited, in this case, 2 minutes per person. Leo? your turn.
So I do not see anyone with their hands raised at this time. If you are on, okay, I see at least one hand raised. So for anybody who would like to speak during this public comment period, please raise your hand electronically in Zoom. If you have phoned in, you may press *9 in order to raise your hand. And then finally, it was mentioned that there is Q&A functionality. So for individuals who prefer to ask their questions in a written format, you may use the Q&A in the Zoom as well for either questions or comments. So I have two people who'd like to speak. So first, I'm going to go ahead and allow Vesta Copestakes to speak. Vesta,
Mute myself.
you are
Okay,
ready to go.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm wondering if at what point is the coastal MAC going to address the local coastal plan and the potential for basically following some of the mandates of other coastal plans, such as eliminating herbicides and pesticides in all properties along the coast that drain into the sea. That's probably one of the most important ones that we talk about for the local coastal plan. There are other ones as well, but I'm wondering, when does the MAC address the local coastal plan?
As a public comment period, we don't respond to this. So if you want to bring it up, if it's later, maybe even with one of the panelists, or that might be a more appropriate time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have one other person, Nate Buck. You should be able to speak now. You can unmute yourself, or I can do it for you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say something related to the shelter in place and the closure out here on the coast. And that was it. I appreciate you guys opening up the boat ramp. This is for Linda, I guess, and Dr. Mays indirectly. Just wanted to remind or just make the statement that a lot of people don't really view fishing as recreation. A lot of people fish for food and supplement their food through fishing in other ways other than accessing from boats, myself included. A lot of people fish and dive from shore to get food. So maybe just consider that in future openings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Or comment, rather. Okay.
I think you're good to go. Yep, thanks.
Okay. Information and presentation, we have none. Oh, Marty.
Scott and Leo, I was just scanning the list of participants, and Cal Aries is classified as a participant. So if you can switch him to a panelist, that would be great.
Thank you for noticing that. Cal, we've tried to move you on as a panelist. Let's see. Okay, so Cal is with us, not on video, but he is on the screen. He's connected as a panelist and will be able to participate the same as a panelist.
The big pink C.
Okay, so no more questions or comments. So we'll move on to regular calendar items. And I'd like to, well, Supervisor Hopkins doesn't need any introduction. Linda's been, and her staff have been doing marvelously through this difficult time.
En estos tiempos tan difíciles. Especialmente quiero agradecerle a ella.
Linda, the floor is yours. Oh, and let me ask you, Linda, did you want to take questions at the end of your talk, or wait until after all the presenters?
I would like to wait until all the presenters, just because I really respect the fact that we have Parks Director Burt Whitaker as well as Captain Wolf on the line, and I want to make sure that we get through them as quickly, you know, as we possibly can. So I think if we can save the questions to the end, that might be the most efficient and expeditious way to move forward, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, floor is yours.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. Of course, things are changing on a daily and sometimes hourly rate here in Sonoma County. The latest news is that last week we did move forward with opening a few new types of businesses that were not previously open before. That includes childcare for non-essential workers, office space in only specifically in instances in which teleworking is not possible, car washes, dog groomers, dog walkers, residential and commercial janitorial services, as well as outdoor exhibition and museum space. Additionally, today, Sonoma County did submit an attestation to the state of California stating that we have met their criteria for moving forward into what's known as phase 2B now. So we were started out in phase 1, which was the strict shelter in place with only essential services being allowed to be obtained. Then we moved by the governor's order into phase 2, where we were starting to permit curbside pickup from retail establishments. And then now we are moving further into phase 2. What that will look like in Sonoma County, as soon as the state approves us, we will move forward with a modification to the public health order. That will allow for outdoor dining opportunities, as well as drive-in ceremonies. So that would include potentially graduation ceremonies, religious services, as well as, you know, the potential for movies or other things like that, as long as people are remaining within their car, only within with people within their household unit. Later, not, you know, sort of in the next phase, but in the sort of future phase that the state would allow us to, would be to move forward with opening up summer camps with modifications, as well as schools with modifications. And so I had a big conference call this morning with all of our West County superintendents regarding what reopening may look like. And I'm looking forward to facilitating a dialogue between all of the superintendents and Dr. Mace going forward. And I was on the phone with our CAO, Cheryl Bratton, about that as well. And really we need to make sure that we're being transparent with parents and with teachers it's on a lot of people's minds what school could look like in the fall, and we need to make sure that we are having a clear decision-making process going forward that hopefully has some consistency across school districts, but potentially some flexibility as well. With respect to, we do have some resources available for small businesses, including coastal small businesses. If you go to sonomaedb.org, there are BMPs, or best management practices, and resources available through SoCo Launch that will help you reopen your business if you are allowed to reopen, or can help you prepare if you are currently in the still holding pattern and the waiting phase for a future reopening effort. We're also looking at creative opportunities, including, potential for road closures or other ways that we could sort of facilitate enhanced, outdoor dining or retail opportunities. It's obviously challenging because we have Highway 1 along the coast. Also in the Lower Russian River, we have Caltrans right of way. So we are in conversation with the state regarding, are there any potential modifications? That is sort of the main updates. I'd like to keep it short because I'm sure that you all want to hear what is the latest from regional parks, as well as our fantastic partners at CHP.
Thank you, Linda. So we'll move on to Bert Whitaker, Regional Parks Director.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Bert Whitaker, Regional Parks, and thank you for allowing me to join you this evening. It's great to see everybody. Just to kind of run through this, I was looking at the agenda and trying to respond, and I'm going to kind of talk out loud a little bit on some of the questions there and information, and certainly I expect there to be a lot of questions and happy to do my best to answer them. To start off here, certainly it's a great question of how decisions are made on the closures and the soft opening. And if we can all remember back to late March, there was a shelter-in-place order put in, proceeded over the weekend to have really, in our regional park system, inland and coastal parks, really probably the busiest Saturday in the history of our organization. And a lot of concerns around people not understanding the intent of shelter in place in our county as well as the surrounding counties. When we think about the coastal areas, certainly regional tourism, as you all know well, living out there, it is a major draw, not only from our surrounding counties, but really, from folks living up to several hundred miles away to come out for day trips. Also, certainly when the coast went into hard closure mode, Marin County did a similar action originally and actually rolled it back to a soft closure, and a lot of feedback from our other public safety partners out along the coast of major concerns with what they were seeing out there. As things have evolved and moved on, as you're hopefully well aware, a little over a week ago, moved into this sort of next phase, both inland and at the coast, where the inland park facilities operated by city, county, state, federal, are now in a partially reopened mode, where for the most part, most parking lots are mostly open. And that's been going fairly well. We've definitely, in our system, observed much more impressive understanding of social distancing out in the outdoor setting, people being generally respectful of one another, and a pretty desirable experience for the visitors. So we're pleased with what we're seeing thus far as we head into some really nice weather over the Memorial Day weekend, which will be an interesting test. We are seeing with the last couple of days inland, this nicer weather. The inland parking lots are going to pretty much full capacity, and we're seeing a lot of use, and it's very consistent, and it is not typical what we would expect to see this time of year, but obviously we all understand these are not typical circumstances. Out in the coastal area, those zones, that local coastal zone area is in a soft closure mode where parking lots remain closed to the public. Individuals are allowed to walk or bike to a park. Certainly not an ideal solution, but it is consistent with this kind of phased approach that occurred inland, with a 2-week period of having a soft closure mode. And the beaches and trails are closed daily from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And curious to hear any feedback from you folks on how that's working or opinions. There's also restriction on any sort of passive recreation, where it's really meant to be active, to get out there for essential outdoor needs, water sports, hiking, running, biking. But we're really, right now, the way things stand, and my sense is into the future, or at least in the near future, it remains in a mode of, no coolers, no beach chairs, and this is not the circumstance where we're still under a shelter-in-place order to go spend the day at the beach. If anything, it's more of a circumstance to get to the beach, get that essential outdoor time, that quality coastal time we all love, and then free up and relieve the space for other individuals. As was mentioned a little bit earlier, I think in the public comment, the boat launch at Westside was reopened just about 2 weeks ago. That's been going smoothly. I hear that the bite is really not all that on though. So when the fishing picks up, we expect that will get much busier. And certainly our two marinas out there, Spud Point and Mason's Marina, which both are home to the commercial fleet as well as recreational boaters, are now available for folks who have rent slips to come out and access their boats for the purposes of fishing for food. So as we sort of dial into real time here, there will be a next phase, and there is certainly a lot of feedback coming into my inbox around the coast, and there is a variety of opinions around it. Really the kinds of considerations going into play in the conversations that myself and others continue to have with our health officer, Dr. Mace, rely a lot on the conditions in our population centers, the testing capacity, the hospital capacity, the trends that are going on. Certainly the governor's orders are continually evolving, and as Supervisor Hopkins just described, there's a lot of things moving and coming in this sort of phased approach is really what we're seeing in all aspects of public services and opportunities right now. Continue to remain concerned around tourism, specifically in the coastal area, but also as we head into the nice weather months, the Russian River Corridor. These are areas that attract visitors from all over the place, and they're incredible assets that we enjoy in our community. And expecting those to be challenging to manage from a park operations perspective. Certainly we continue a very a robust conversation with our partners in the coastal zone, state parks, the California Highway Patrol, our Sheriff's Office, our EMS service providers up and down the coast to assess real-time conditions and begin discussing what the future may look like. Continue to hear resounding concerns around restroom and trash out in the coastal area. At the inland facilities, most restrooms have been reopened, and we now have got proper protective equipment and supplies for our staff to do so safely. And so far, a little over a weekend, that seems to be going pretty smoothly. And certainly there's an ongoing conversation with the coastal counties as well as the Bay Area Parks directors and some of the Bay Area health officers of just what is happening within the region. Definitely in close contact with Max Cornum over in Marin County, in working hand in hand with the idea that what happens to the south and what happens to the north certainly is an impact, and the coastal zone really in the northern Bay Area counties is somewhat different than some of the other coastal counties. But as you look up and down the coast, there's a whole variety of things happening with coastal counties, and many of which are quite different than Sonoma County, that is just so highly urban or so highly rural compared to most coastal counties having some areas with larger urban centers and more services available. So the question was here, definitely I've been provided a lot of feedback from coastal residents, and it is very much appreciated. And just the kind of the themes that I continue to hear and see in my inbox is this idea of a phased approach, and that is very consistent with what Dr. Mace has been doing with the health orders continually. Definitely, reiteration of the Bodega Bay especially, but really our whole coast has got issues, has experienced issues with traffic and parking on peak use days. Definitely heard a theme of residents only. Limited reopenings is common. Certainly restrooms, trash, and hand washing is on the top of everyone's mind. Emergency personnel and protective equipment for those personnel, support of local businesses. And I feel like I have a very close relationship with most of the surfers along our coastline, who I certainly would love for them to be able to get back out in the ocean as soon as possible. I understand that. So there was a question there on ways to provide feedback, and definitely feedback is appreciated. I say feel free to email that directly to regional parks as one opportunity, as well as Supervisor Hopkins. The easiest way to land it into my inbox is to email it to parks@sonoma-county.org, and those are funneled my way. With that, I'm just going to turn it over to Captain Wolf, if you want to kind of touch base on Highway Patrol perspectives, and then turn it over to Mike Laird with State Parks to talk a little bit about what's going on in their world.
Okay, we can, if you'd like, Officer Wolf could speak now if you'd like to change the order. That's fine, Officer Wolf.
Captain Wolf, you should be ready. Oh, you unmuted. There you go. Captain Wolf, you should be ready to go. We don't hear you right now, though. Now try again. I unmuted the other call, and you have. Can you try speaking?
Should we go to Mike Lair meanwhile?
Sure. Captain Wolf, one last try. You look unmuted, both your dial-in and your screen. All right, we'll go to Mike Lair and we'll see if we can figure out what's happening here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now I do have our district superintendent, Terry Burles, is on as well. He's probably under the other alias of Mike Lair. And I'd be happy to have him chime in from the kind of state perspective if that's what you're looking for, or I can talk to local. So Terry, are you available? There you go. Looks like he's unmuted. Terry? Okay, well, I'll speak kind of, Bert and I have been in constant contact for along the Sonoma coast, and you know, we're trying to stay in step with how we manage both state parks and county parks, because we share so many boundaries out there. So when the new order comes out and we have these conversations, we're staying in step with them. It's been a little difficult with the high numbers of people coming out and just pulling into the coned off areas and parking. So our staff's been doing a great job just getting the message out. It's been a little tough because folks believe the messaging isn't good and isn't consistent. I think part of that is sometimes people read open, like this new phase we're in now with the closure from 11 to 5. People read the open piece of it and they drive out there and they're coming out there. So we've really got our talking points. We really come out and just educate the people on the closure. What we're seeing, though, the majority of the folks coming out are from out of the area. So a lot of Sacramento residents, Rockland, all that area. And then Sonoma County, quite a few folks, and Napa County, quite a few folks. For the most part, Sonoma County residents aren't coming out there. So the messaging is clear and it's received, and they're following the order. It's the out-of-towners that continue to be the problem. I'd say today, though, we'd had some folks coming out and they were from the local area and they're tired and they just want to get out, and they say, well, it's open now. We're just going to come out and we're going to get a look. So we'll see about this weekend as we move into it. But as far as how we manage it, we're taking the lead from the health officer on how this goes. And I can't speak to the parking in the neighborhoods or any of that. Maybe Captain Wolf can talk to the group about that. So that's the report from State Parks. Unless Terry, are you on? Do you want to chime in from a district perspective?
Leo, do you see that person? Do I unmute them?
I don't see Terry. I mean, Mike, I see you dialed in twice as one of those Terry. They're both unmuted.
Yeah.
Yes, one is Terry.
Okay.
One is Terry, that's correct.
I mean, it's showing as unmuted, so I'm not sure why the audio is not coming through.
Okay. So if you can get through.
Can I just ask Terry's last name? I'm sorry.
Bertels, Bertels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is Terry going to speak, or are we unable?
I don't see here. Let me again, like both mic layers are now unmuted. So Terry, if you are there, please speak. It looks like we don't have Terry. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Captain Wolf dialed in. So I'm gonna put him on over the phone now. And then we can come back to Terry if Terry can connect. Captain Wolf, you should be able to speak.
Thanks, Leo. Does everybody hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I've got a computer and an iPhone, both failing me electronically, so I had to just call in. So, you know, back to Mike's point about the people that are coming out and the messaging. I mean, we do expect some crowds this weekend. What I've been trying to do is manage people's expectations of sort of what our role is, so they're clear on what the Highway Patrol's mission is and how we see it. Because I know it can be frustrating to residents when they see these people coming and they're not following the orders, and locals from you know, even Sonoma County, but they're driving to the locations. We are not enforcing the health order per se, because there's some real issues with just stopping people to see where they're from and asking them where they're going. I'm sorry, is everybody hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. So, and also I do have on the line for some perspective out there, Sergeant Capurro and Officer Quentin Schock, who work out on the coast. So what I will tell you is we will be stopping people for vehicle code violations. We will be enforcing parking violations, but many of the ones that affect residents are not things that we can enforce. So in other words, if they just park on some place that's otherwise legal, we can't cite a car for the health order. Does that make sense? So that said, we will be moving people along when we can, which we have been doing, and we've been trying to help out Mike's guys around their closures when people just stop. We will be aggressively enforcing the vehicle code. This is a maximum enforcement period for the Highway Patrol anyway, because of the holiday weekend. And if they park in a place that is designated no parking, then we'll cite them. But if someone violates the health order and goes down to the beach, even if we were proactively enforcing the health order, we can't cite their car. So if 50 cars are parked, I can't put a cop in every trunk to cite them, right? Unfortunately. So I do expect some crowds, and we're just going to do our best. And our mission is to keep you safe on the roads and make sure people aren't creating an unsafe environment traffic-wise, and to support our allied agencies as much as we can. We will be putting 2 extra officers out there by means of extra staffing and by extending the hours of our actual coast units. So you will see more of us, but we're also having to increase staffing countywide. So yeah, I expect this weekend's going to be challenging. It's going to be warm, and there's going to be a lot of moving parts.
That's it. Thank you. Did our other the second half of Mike Lair, can he call in yet, or are we going to go on? Terry, was it?
Yeah.
Terry.
So we've got one of the mics unmuted and the other one. Now they're both unmuted. So Terry, if your computer has a setting to turn the mic on or off, somebody was suggesting that that could be the issue. Would you like to try speaking? You're showing as unmuted.
Yeah, this is Mike. I did unmute just in case it's connected to my mute. So I'm not sure.
I mean, one other option is if Terry wants to call in, that's also an option.
Shall we go on to questions? And if Terry comes in, he can step in.
Okay. So Scott, I've got a bunch of written questions, and then there is one person with her hand raised. Do you want to start with the hand raise?
Sure. Yes, please.
Okay. Liz, you are now unmuted. You should be able to speak. Should be ready to go.
Hey, thank you, Leo. Thank you, everybody. Liz Martin out in Bodega Bay. My concern with this weekend is from what I understand, the parking lots and everything are going to be closed. How are the police force going to monitor places like the Lucas Wharf parking lot or the Pelican Plaza parking lot, where these places sell food to go, but people stay stay and eat?
And that's directed to Director Lair or Captain Wolf?
Captain Wolf, please.
Well, again, if they're not violating some sort of no parking ordinance, we're not going to cite their cars, and we're not proactively looking for violations of the health order. I don't know that there's anyone from the Sheriff's Department on the line, but I don't want to speak for them, but that is the difficulty of this health order in general, is it doesn't necessarily intersect with what we do every day. We certainly would take steps to educate people, but our mission is to save lives on the roadways, and that's what we're going to focus on the most.
And I thank you for that, sir. I'm just trying to lower the stress level of some of my vendors in town here in Bodega Bay, because we see people gathering, they're leaving trash, the typical stuff. So I'm just trying to figure out what I can tell them. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could just add.
Yes.
Am I muted? Sorry.
No, you're on. Please go.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating, and it's an unprecedented situation for us enforcement-wise as well. So if we do see a particular problem that we can respond to and help with, we will. But again, our parameters are going to be the traffic laws and ordinances that we can cite for.
Thank you, sir. And I get it. I get it. It is truly unprecedented. Thank you, sir.
Leo, could we should have maybe asked the reps if they have questions. Could we do that now?
Absolutely, that makes sense. Go ahead.
So any of the reps, please raise your hand if you'd like to ask questions. Brooks?
Yes, maybe this would go to Supervisor Hopkins. I'm just wondering if our law enforcement and emergency personnel have sufficient supply of PPE, knowing that we're going to have a huge volume of people that they're going to be dealing with this weekend.
That is a great question. And we do currently have plenty of inventory through the County Emergency Operations Center, and we are providing that to first responders upon request. So we have, everything from surgical masks, N95, facial shields, gowns. We have an effective storage capacity right now.
Any other reps with a question? Kathy, please.
So basically, we just need to be patient and hope people mind their manners. It kind of seems to be the message we're getting. Yes. That's my question.
Is that rhetorical?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. We're trying. So that's it. Thanks. I know it's really hard. I would really appreciate the law enforcement, the park rangers, the county parks. Everybody out here is trying to do their job, and I know they're suffering a lot of abuse from the public, and I applaud them for trying to do it gently. That's my comment.
I have a comment or a question directed to Mike Lair. In the Salt Point Park, might we expect a resident badge there sometime in the future? I know funds are tight, but is that being discussed?
Yeah, actually, we have a ranger coming out of the academy in July, which will then go through the field training program. And there's a state residence up there that looks like he will occupy. So we will be filling that void very, very shortly.
That's good news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. Any other representatives would like to comment or ask a question? Seeing no hands, Leo, please. Oh, Brooks.
I don't know. I have a suggestion for going down the road for this phasing. Has anybody approached the state or Caltrans about only parking on Highway 1 on one side of the road and putting up no parking signs on the other so that we can, create a better access down the road.
Would that be directed to Captain Wolf?
I'm not sure who. I mean, it's not something you're going to do this weekend, but certainly looking to the future within the next month or so, could we look at something like that? Would it help?
Any comment about that, Captain Wolf? Not hearing you, Elise.
I'm in communication with Caltrans about some
Hello?
issues on 116, so I'm happy to add to this. I'm talking with their district director, so I'm happy to add that question. Brooks, could you please give me some more specific? Could you send me an email that that defines what section of 1 you're talking about and what that looks like, and I can pass it by them.
Good, thank you.
Welcome.
And Captain Wolf, if you can speak maybe to the whether on Highway 1, if that's allowed.
Well, that would be entirely up to Caltrans. I have not approached them. I believe they have been assisting state parks by putting out some of the cones that are there. The cones in and of themselves are a difficult enforcement challenge because they are not a no parking ordinance, they're just cones. There is a specific vehicle code section for traversing a cone pattern, but it really has more to do with traffic than parking. And I think it'd be a little bit of a stretch to cite. Certainly, if this was more of a long-term situation, I would look into some sort of regulatory sign, but I don't know that there is a quick fix regulatory solution. If there was, Caltrans would be the people to talk to about it, and certainly if you're already in conversations with them, we'll enforce anything that's in a vehicle code or an ordinance. So if it's there, we could get some teeth to write tickets, which would be nice.
Okay, thank you. Any other representatives? Brooks, again.
I'm sorry, I have one more question or comment to make to Supervisor Hopkins, and that is in our area, in Bodega Bay, our homeowners expand greatly over the weekends, Thursday afternoon, Friday through Monday. It's all the second home owners and their families who are coming in and spending the weekend. I really don't see anything against that. I'm just wondering if you can't approach Dr. Mace and maybe get that to be an acceptable thing, that they are allowed to come in from a maintenance standpoint or something, so that they wouldn't be breaking the regulation.
Elise, did you want to comment on that?
Hi, we also got that question earlier this week from Sea Ranch, and so I asked legal counsel about the second home ordinance, and this is the response we received. Individuals with 2 homes may not move between the 2 for vacation purposes and must choose which home to shelter in. Individuals may leave their residence to ensure the habitability, sanitation, and essential operation of their other residence. Do you get that?
So does that mean they can't stay there, but they could go and do maintenance?
Individuals may leave their residence to ensure the habitability, sanitation, and essential operation of their other residence.
Okay.
I mean, the challenge with some of these things is that they're pretty vague, right? So I think that's what the concept is, and the best judgment that people need to use is we don't want people willy-nilly, timey-wimey, wandering up and down from one county to another. But if there is an essential reason, like if they've been in Sea Ranch for 3 months and they really need to check on their house in Santa Clara, to drive down there to make sure that the habitability, sanitation, and essential operation of their home is maintained, they can do that. That's what I hear.
Okay, Kathy, please.
Okay, so I would definitely like that as a long-term solution for Highway 1, because even though we have our situation right now with shelter in place, our beaches get inundated, and in a typical summer weekend, you can't hardly drive up Highway 1, let alone our first responders. And then we have the bicyclists and everything else, because any place anyone can park on Highway 1, they will park on it. So if long-term there could be a parking ordinance put in place to lessen that traffic congestion, because it's not going to go away when the shelter in place is removed. This is a long-term problem that I've seen gradually getting worse over the last 10 years. Thank you.
Okay. Wanda, you had a question? Unmute Wanda.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So can we expect that all the parking lots along the coast will remain closed until there's a vaccine? And that goes out to maybe Linda.
No, I mean, so I think that this is also a good question for Bert Whitaker. You know, the plan is to have a phased reopening of the Sonoma coast, which will allow vehicular access at some point. We're not going to make any changes, you know, certainly before Memorial Day, and we're hoping also to make changes in concert with Marin County so as to avoid overconcentration either in Marin or Sonoma based on one getting ahead of another. But Bert, would you like to add anything? And I also know that, you know, restrooms have been a critical issue that you spoke to a little bit earlier as well.
Yeah, the main points is, yeah, it's not realistic to think that this is going to stay closed to the public forever. And as Dr. Mace has laid out with this continual easing, I mean, she's really kind of communicated, make a change, wait several weeks per the timelines of the disease, watch the numbers, and make the decisions based on evidence. And if things start changing in a way that is negative, well, then it allows some opportunity to go back and dissect between the numbers and the contact tracing and to try and hone in on what are those issues and how do we sustain public safety while this emergency is ongoing until hopefully at some point there's, you know, a vaccine or a treatment or some way to stabilize the risks.
Okay, thank you. Any other representatives? Okay, Leo, why don't we go back to the list? But I'd like to first, before you do, to encourage our Spanish-speaking neighbors to please call in or chime in with questions. We really like that. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll continue to work my way down. Right now, C. Higgins has her hand raised. She's unmuted. She should be ready to speak.
Hello, this is C.
We can hear you.
Great. Hello, everyone. I just had a question about the enforcement. I am a coastal resident, and I am just trying to understand, you know, that we have this order that says that people cannot drive out to the coast. But if people are parking as they are now on Coleman Valley Road and Carrington Ranch, on Bay Flat Road, all along, you know, the roads in front of Pinnacle Gulch or Short Tail and along West Side Park, but they're not ticketed because you're saying that if that's what would normally be a legal parking space or not a cone violation, I mean, what's to discourage them from coming and parking out here if there is no enforcement? I mean, are state park rangers giving tickets for people that are parking and then walking to the beach? Is Highway Patrol ticketing people that are parking in areas that under the ordinance they should not be parking in? Because I don't quite understand. It would be wonderful to rely on people's good faith, but there have been, and it seems that all the local residents are the ones that are following the ordinance, but everyone visiting is not. And that was the intent, was to keep people from visiting. So I'm just wondering, how is this being enforced?
This has been answered a little bit. Did Officer Wolf want to chime in again, or Mike, Blair, Officer Wolf first?
Hi. So again, extremely frustrating, and I totally get that. One of the things about the health order in general is, and not to criticize the Department of Health, and they're not represented on the call, so it's a little bit unfair, but though we have conversations with them, they don't consult law enforcement when they make these health orders or the provisions therein, which makes them difficult to enforce the way that maybe they envision them being enforced. Again, nothing in the health order constitutes a parking violation, so that's a problem. And although we might be able to, in theory, cite someone for the health order, which we are not proactively doing as an agency. We work essentially for the governor, and we're not citing people for the shelter in place alone. It might be a charge we would add to another arrest if we could really prove it, but it would go as a complaint to be filed, and we're not citing. So, but aside from that, the order doesn't apply to ticketing vehicles. So what you would need is essentially an officer waiting for someone to return to their car to somehow determine how long they've been there and how long or where they came from. And I honestly don't think, even if a couple of those citations happened, it would be a deterrent to out-of-town people who are not going to get the message or know that people were cited for that. So it's extremely difficult, and I don't mean to sit and make excuses about it. It's just this is largely a social contract. Although there is a law backing it, it is sort of an agreement that people are going to behave, and when they don't, we look for the ways that we can penalize them for bad behavior, but that's just not a great, it's not a great tool for us.
Thank you. Mike, Blair, would you add anything to that?
Well, the only thing I can add is, you know, we have another tool we use for this closure, and it's through the CCRs with the district superintendent order. So we do have a little more flexibility on our property, and we can cite a vehicle if it's on state park property there, and we have been doing that when we can't find the owner. But other than that, that's all the tools we really have to enforce that. It's just anything on our property, we have the authority under California Code of Regulations to do, and it's a temporary power that we have, and we use it in instances like this. So.
Okay, thank you. And Bert, would you add anything?
Just echo many of the comments that were made, and you know, in the case of the regional parks facilities out there, I mean, certainly in the full closure mode, there were a number of parking citations issued. But as we move to soft closure mode, that's a different circumstance. And generally speaking, the right-of-ways and places where people are parking are not under the jurisdiction of a regional park ranger. Those areas are gated off and closed. So we don't have the same challenge in large part.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Leo.
Thank you. I'll move over to the official Q&A because there's nobody whose hand is raised right now. Donna Martinez asked a question. This, I'm guessing, may be appropriate for Linda. In what phase, how soon do you expect short-term rentals to reopen? Linda, are you there?
Yeah, so short-term rentals are not currently on the radar. So when we're talking about, you know, moving through phase 2, we're talking about those ones that I discussed earlier with respect to outdoor dining, drive-in services, then later summer camps and schools. The governor and the state have been very clear that they are not considering tourism at this point in time, and we do not have a timeline for when we would be able to move forward with reopening lodging. So unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball on that one, but I can tell you that it is not within the short-term realm in our conversations with the state. So it's not, you know, likely to happen next week or in the next couple or 3 weeks.
Thank you.
The next question is from Frank Bell for Bert. Hi, Bert. Frank Bell here from the Sea Ranch. From a public policy standpoint, we seem to be working hard to create a positive environment for local recreation. However, with the beach closure rules, notification to the public of the rules as well as enforcement seems to be inconsistent. What is the policy of county parks with respect to the current rules?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is described earlier, there's a lot of challenges. When the inland parks were in the similar phase for 2 weeks of closures, there certainly was a similar scenario where many individuals choosing to park in neighborhoods. It was at a high level. I didn't think it probably wasn't as egregious as I thought it would be. It's very similar to what we anticipated along the coast. And what we've seen now that we've reopened parking lots and established a more normal use pattern, as I described, is busy parking lots, but for the most part, pretty acceptable behavior across the board for most individuals getting out there and appreciating returning to the outdoors. You know, the coastal zone is exceptionally challenging, as pointed out, because it is such a regional destination and draw for surrounding counties that are also still in shelter-in-place orders. And it's one of those things that there's the park providers and the agencies providing services out there are talking and communicating and doing our best to provide the health department and Dr. Mace with what the real-time conditions are and the best guess on how do we move this into an area that is more comfortable and more streamlined for the public, as well as for those of us out there trying to do our jobs to keep the public safe and make everything work the way it was intended.
Thank you.
So Vesta Copestakes is asking, please be clear about restrooms since it's a serious concern. Are the coast restrooms at parks open or not? And so maybe this could go to both regional parks and state parks, please.
Yeah, I can start off and essentially say the current health order is silent on restrooms, and it would be up to the park operator if they wanted to provide that service. As it stands right now, our regional parks policy has been during a soft closure period that folks should be walking or biking and going to nearby locations, and we're not providing restroom services at this time, other than at the West Side boat launch for those individuals launching boats, and at the marinas for those folks who have got slips in the marinas.
Mike?
Yeah, and that would be true for us. Under disclosure order, people are supposed to be moving, and so the restrooms out there's no parking. Our restrooms are in the parking lots, and so we don't have any restrooms open currently. As things change, obviously, parking lots are open. We will have our restrooms opened again, but there is no access to restrooms. I don't think you can find any restrooms along the Sonoma coast. Not even, I don't think the gas stations even let you use the bathrooms.
Okay, thanks. Leo.
Okay, Mike, we've got two more for you here. I'm going to read them both. The next one is from someone anonymous. Do SP Rangers have authority to issue citations for folks coming from out of area? And if so, are they issuing citations? George Flores is asking, would it be practical for state parks to park empty vehicles across entrances to popular parking spots?
All right, so the first question is, we have all the state peace officer authorities as any other agency. So we do use our CCR codes, and we are issuing citations for that being in a closed area. And then the second one, parking vehicles in some of the parking lots. We're looking at ways to manage it. I think this weekend is going to be a tough one. Last weekend we had people pulling in through the cone patterns, and even in North Salmon, where the sign is, they pulled right in and parked. And so we're looking at ways to maybe have a parking lot attendant, ways that we can keep people from parking in there. It's definitely going to be a challenge. I think Captain spoke to it. It's something we're just going to have to work through. There's many miles of coast that have vertical access, and some of that land is state park lands, and other lands are Caltrans right-of-way land. So we'll do our best to keep people off the beaches, but there's miles of coast that we are responsible for, from south to north up to Salt Point.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna shift back to the live questions. So Lori Miller is waiting to speak. Lori, you should be permitted to speak now.
Bob had a question.
Hi, my name's Bob Miller, and I have a business out here in Bodega Bay for the last 25 years. And I entertain people coming out here to surf. I have a surf shop out here, and also take them kayaking in the protected waters. And so the last couple months, I've been shut down, and I understand I'm a part of something really big, bigger than my business is, and I've been more than happy to do that. I'm excited as we slowly find ourselves opening up here. But a couple of things I notice, I live in Carmet, so I'm constantly up and down the coast. And what I do see when it comes to North Salmon Creek and the cliffs there where the cones are at, what I see is a ranger coming through, people being asked to leave, they go on their way. As soon as the ranger leaves, people come in. So to me, it's great once he's there or she's there, but I think on these days that we're talking about that are gonna get a little more intense, that job, they can only do so much. And so I'm a firm believer what we're doing for the surfers, where we have to bike in and enjoy the beach. There's some rules in place that I can appreciate right now that we're doing. And I think we need to open the parks and create these rules. And I'd be more than happy to volunteer my time to be in the parking lot, to educate people. 2 months ago, things were a lot different. People didn't understand what we were doing. Changes were happening a lot. What I've noticed in my business, because now I'm doing curbside, people want to do the right thing. At least that's what I'm seeing. But I think those cliffs are going to get real dangerous as we approach the summertime. And there's just not enough officers to do anything. So opening our parks and letting people go in, having some structure around it, I think is going to be best and safer. The other thing I want to say is I also jog once in a while. I do Coleman Valley Road. And what I'm noticing is with these bathrooms closed, Coleman Valley Road has become a great bathroom for people. It's getting really gross. So what we're doing is we're telling people, they're coming out anyway. A lot of people are coming out because it is going to summer. They're tired. They need to breathe. When they come out here, they have to go to the bathroom. And if our parks aren't going to have our bathrooms open, they're going to find other means. And that's going to be a problem because last time I checked, it's not a good thing to have people going to the bathroom all over the roads. So that was pretty much it. But I did want to say that I'd be more than happy, and I know a lot of surfers would, to create kind of a volunteer where we're at the parking lots, we're telling people, it's closed this, whatever rules we're going to create, be more than happy to do that. So I just thought I'd make that comment. Thank you for your time.
Okay, is that a comment, or Linda, would you like to respond?
That was a comment. Oops, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Please try to keep it to 2 minutes. That's helpful. Leo?
Thanks, Scott. I'll go ahead and remember to time going forward. There are a number of comments. I'm going to try to stick with the ones that are on topic or potentially on topic. Mike Nichols is saying, I heard that Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department is running plates on beach visitors not complying with local ordinances and making contact. That's a comment. Would anybody like to respond to that issue?
Either.
Okay.
No, it's
That's
not.
fine. If it fits in with something later, if anybody wants to, they're welcome to. The next comment is from Kate. In all the unrelenting pressure to open the beaches and the extensive rule breaking and coming out in defiance, moving barriers, etc., I don't hear much regard for the safety of the coastal communities and their health, and the county infection numbers are going up. It seems sheltering in place is increasingly being regarded as optional. Does anybody want to speak to that?
I will, yeah. I just think that that's actually extremely inaccurate. And I've had a number of conversations, including with some of our law enforcement and state partners who are on this Zoom meeting regarding the safety of our first responders and the safety of our communities. And the reason that we have reopened, the coast more gradually and that it was under a strict shelter-in-place order longer is specifically because of the rural infrastructure and the challenges that law enforcement faces trying to patrol 55 miles of coastline. So we are absolutely taking this very thoughtfully and gradually. And you note that you can drive to inland parks, but you still cannot drive to the parks legally along the coast. And so we're definitely taking this slowly and thoughtfully. And yeah, we're really thinking about, there was a meeting, actually, I didn't participate, but between Bodega Bay Fire Protection District and Regional Parks, specifically to discuss concerns regarding first responder community. So we are very much thinking about the health of the communities and the first responders and law enforcement professionals who are tasked with maintaining order and responding to emergent threats.
Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and read these next comments, and if anybody wants to reply, just raise your hand. But these are pretty general, so I'm going to just assume that I'm just going to read the comments. George Flores said, may local residents place notices on outsiders' vehicles at beaches or nearby neighborhoods that state, quote, you are parking and going to the beach illegally. Please leave and consider making a donation to the Bodega Bay Fire Protection District in consideration of the added risk you have placed on local residents and first responders. So that is actually a question. Are residents allowed to place notices on outsiders' vehicles?
I guess no answers.
Okay. Donna Martinez points out, it says, and in Sea Ranch as well regarding second homeowners too. Donna's also asking if there's a time limit on the fixing up of the house. George Flores had a similar question about whether Caltrans can park big vehicles across parking lots at the beach entrances to make it more difficult for scofflaws to bypass cones and barriers.
That was answered.
Yep. Jeanette is saying, it's vague. I see Airbnb operating and not much done about it. Others like me have kept mine shuttered, losing a lot of money, but others are profiting. Donna Martinez was asking about hotels. Does that include hotels? Linda, do you want to address that hotels, I believe, are also closed to tourism at this time?
Yeah, hotels are not allowed to operate either. They're only allowed to operate for the purposes, as are vacation rentals, of housing essential workers or providing more, medium-term or longer-term housing. They can also provide shelter for homeless individuals, as well as, sort of medically necessitated quarantine facilities. I will say that with respect to enforcement, I have been working to try to get county council to consider something similar to what Mendocino County has done, which is the fact is that, our sheriff's deputies are doing their absolute best, but there aren't enough of them to deal with all of the complaints that come in on a daily basis. And so I'm trying to get an ordinance passed that would allow our Permit Sonoma code enforcement officers to also respond to those kinds of complaints. And so I stay tuned, but I'm hoping to get some information about county council, and hopefully that might come before the Board of Supervisors at some point for approval. And that would allow us to essentially have more staff capacity to be able to go after those violators. I agree with whoever submitted that comment. It's extremely frustrating when we have business owners who have had to make horrible, decisions to lay off employees, to take a hit to their own wallets financially. And then there are other people who are raking in money hand over fist in violation of public health order. And that's what has to stop. That's not acceptable. And so it creates a lot of fear and anxiety in the neighborhoods, and it's just simply not fair to those businesses who are doing the right thing. So we're working on stepping up enforcement. Stay tuned.
Thank you. Leo.
Linda, there's a related question to that from Vesta. Business Journal had an article today on hotels increasing income. How can that be if hotels are closed?
I haven't seen that article, so I don't know over what time period or any details about that. So I'm sorry, I can't speak to that.
Okay. So the next question seems like it should be for anonymous attendee. Says, when can we expect side mowing on Fort Ross Road? I'm assuming we don't have somebody who can speak to that, but Elise, are you raising your hand? Go for it.
This is one of the things I'm going to talk about during my staff comments. Is this is the time for vegetation management, and TPW has brought in a lot of extra help to work on vegetation management in order to prepare for fire season. So if you go to SoCo Report It and put in the area that you want to have vegetation cut down or mowing on a county road, they will put that on their list and come after it. So go to SoCo Report It, or send an email to TPW or to us at District 5 at sonoma-county.org, and we will make sure that that gets on the list for mowing.
Thank you.
Okay. The next comment from an anonymous attendee is the quote, limited access signage to the Bodega Bay beaches is confusing. Unless one drives up to the small signs posted and able to read the notice, it is not clear that one has to be able to walk from one's residence to the beach, which means that if one has the privilege of ownership of property that has beach access, many local Bodega Bay residents are excluded from beach access. There's also a comment from Liz asking me to repeat the Bodega Bay comment from earlier, and that was a fragment that was presumably written by somebody referring to second homeowners. I'm not sure, but I do see Liz has also got her hand raised, so I'll go ahead and recognize her now, and she, oops, it's gone. Liz, if you want to speak, go ahead and re-raise your hand. And then there's a question from Norma J asking why isn't the sheriff enforcing shelter-in-place orders, leaving it to CHP and park rangers? We can treat that as a comment unless somebody would like to respond to that.
I think it'll be a comment.
And Vesta had one more question on vegetation management mowing. Can there be a trash removal crew come in before they mow so they don't mow trash into tiny pieces that cannot be cleaned up? Okay. So, I mean, those are the key comments here. I mean, I will say that I have kept just a quarter of an eye on the Facebook, and a number of comments have dealt with asking about speeding. And so that speeding along the coast, and I think that was in the context of the holiday weekend. Debbie Samloff Ramirez also had a question that might be for CHP. If someone gets pulled over for a vehicle code violation and it turns out they are violating the health order because they are from out of the area, will they also get an additional fine? If that happens and it is publicized, that may deter others from doing the same.
Typically not. So is that for me? Sorry.
Please.
Yes.
No, we're not citing or asking questions about the health order or where people are from in regard to it. And that's statewide, and I think it's fairly consistent with law enforcement throughout the county. I don't want to speak for them all, but I do meet with them all regularly. It gets dicey a little bit. There's some First and Fourth Amendment issues that we really don't want to tackle. Again, if someone were committing a greater crime and they were also doing it in violation of the health order, we would probably add that for filing later from the district attorney's office, but we'd want it to have a higher level of legal scrutiny than we would probably give to the discretion of our patrol officers.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Merlin Kolb, who's waiting to talk. Merlin, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Yeah, good evening, MAC participants. Thank you for your time this evening, and thanks for all of your hard work. I'll just bring a couple of you up to speed, and those of you that are watching. I'm a charter boat captain here in Bodega Bay. It's my only source of income. Ms. Hopkins is aware of this issue. She's been very supportive over the last couple of weeks. Just want everyone to know that several marinas are opening that have charter boat fishing operations within them. Berkeley is opening, San Francisco is opening on Saturday. And us here in Bodega Bay, we're holding on by a thread, and we have a plan where we think we have good mitigation protocols prepared. We want to show it to the county and try to get the ball moving, because there are probably some of our boats that won't make it, and maybe including mine. And not only is getting a chance to get out on the ocean really clean, because salt water and fresh air is known to inhibit the virus, it's a great opportunity, a great outdoor activity to help get the ball rolling of reopening. And it's a great stimulus for opportunities of other local businesses to take advantage of the patrons that come in and use our charter fishing services. So we urge you to please consider opening Sonoma County Sport Fishing Center. It's not even a park to begin with. It's really a parking lot. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody want to follow up with that?
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Merlin. My park manager, David Robinson, earlier today shared with me a copy of a proposal from Captain Rick Powers, and we'll be bringing that up in my conversations with the health officer as part of the ongoing phasing of easing of restrictions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Leo, how are we doing with questions?
We're doing well. Right now, I just see one that's in the official Q&A from Eric Koningshofer. I just looked online at the Sonoma County Tourism Bureau website and clicked on the page, quote, Sonoma opens up, to find photos of people drinking wine and partying on the beach. Shouldn't this type of advertising be pulled down during this crisis period?
I guess that's a comment. And
okay. So those are all the official questions. And
did you want to
one?
Linda?
Oh, I just want to say that I will pass that information on. I've actually been in close communication with Sonoma County Tourism, and they've been trying to, dial back the messaging to something that's appropriate. So if something is still up there and it's slipping through, I will let them know right away. So I was just pulling up the link, and I will pass that on.
Thank you. Okay, Leo.
Okay, so one new comment just appeared. So if anybody else has comments, maybe you need to get them in the next minute, and I'll read this new additional comment from Kate. The beautiful wild mustard and radish hedgerows that bloom for a long time each year along Highway 1 did not bloom this year. The grass was dead and brown like pesticides had been used. I thought Caltrans had agreed not to use pesticides some years ago. So passing along that comment. Okay.
So is that all the questions?
That is. I mean, there's informal commenting and questions on Facebook, but they're largely on topics that have been covered around enforcement and just people asking about why other coastal communities, or someone asked about how Santa Rosa has fined construction workers $1,000 for not wearing appropriate face gear. So just some general questions about why enforcement is different in Sonoma County, but we've addressed all the official questions and comments here. Thank you.
Okay. Do any of our speakers want to summarize or have any additional comment? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. Linda.
I just wanted to say a huge thank you to every single deputy and park ranger who has been out there patrolling the coast. And I want to acknowledge that, this is going to be a tough summer, I think, for all of us. We are really, truly caught between a rock and a hard place, and the economic hardships and ramifications of a shuttered economy along the coast are extremely real to a lot of our small businesses. But so is the palpable fear that we have in the community, who feels that they're threatened by, this deluge potentially of out of area visitors. So I just hope that we can all work together to try to keep up that social compact as, Captain Wolf so deftly put it, that we need to try to hold one another accountable. We need to report things that are blatantly illegal or in violation of public health order as they come in real time. And just recognize that, the best way to get through this is together, socially distanced. And that we'll continue to modify policies as the data suggests that we should, in partnership with Dr. Mace and under her guidance as our public health officer. So our hope is to try to, not turn the spigot on fully so that it's, sort of blasting tons of people out at the coast, but not keeping us in full shutdown, lockdown mode forever. So the trick is, how do we turn that tap just partway on? And it will be, through these things like the, sort of midday closures. And we're just going to have to keep refining the model as we go. And I hope that you will all please, serve as those liaisons, as the MAC representatives to your communities, funnel those concerns into our office, and we will work with our law enforcement partners and our state parks partners going forward. So thank you all for participating in the panel this evening.
Thank you. Bert, did you? Yes, Bert.
Just, thank you for having me on, and look forward to getting through the summer. And as Linda mentioned, I think just a key thing I didn't touch on with the way the health order inland shifted responsibilities is it really put the control in many ways back in the hands of the park operators, to where, you know, similar to what I described to the Russian River community last week, you know, regional parks is bracing itself and preparing for sort of those range of options, just to be reactive, and know that there are going to be times that are going to be extremely challenging, and be as adaptable as we can. And with that, one of the biggest challenges certainly is communications. We have a pretty robust page on the Sonoma County Parks.org site on the COVID-19 status of parks. And that's been working so far inland pretty well to engage people in what areas are, you know, what's open in what areas. So stay tuned, but that's what's in our minds as we look ahead in the weeks and months ahead of the summer of 2020. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Officer or Captain Wolf, are you want to say something more?
No, thank you for letting me, answer any of your questions. And as you all know, especially in Bodega Bay, we have resident officers out there that are very tuned into your community needs. And although this is a tough slog with the virus, a lot of these are seasonal problems that they're well aware of, that they will do their best to mitigate. It's tough. It's paradise tax in a weird way when you get these people coming from out of town to this great place that you live. And now you add this, and it's really rough. But speeds are higher right now. Crashes are down, but speeds are higher. So we're still out there arresting drunk drivers, and we're writing a lot of high-speed tickets, and we'll have extra officers doing that over this weekend. So if we get crowds, we're going to make sure and slow them down and keep you safe as we can. But thank you for having me as always.
Thank you. Mike, did you want to add anything?
No, I just want to echo everybody else, and thank you for having me on. And we'll continue to work with the county. Hopefully we can get through this sooner than later. It's been difficult, but everybody's kept a good attitude, doing the best we can with what we have. And I think once we get through this weekend, hopefully we'll be the light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you. Thank you, all speakers, for spending your time with us and giving us this opportunity to be together. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we've spent an hour and a half with this. I think it was well spent, and we'll move on to our regular business now, which is, let's see, item is regular calendar items, communication plan. It was in the packet, and this was developed by the Lower River MAC, and they did such a good job. We thought we would consider adopting it. So my question is, would the council wish to adopt this policy? And I hope you've all read it, or form an ad hoc to review and make recommendations, which we can approve in our July meeting. Any comments from the representatives? Raise your hand. I see Brooks.
Looks fine. Oh, am I mute? Oh, okay.
You're good now.
Sorry. I thought it looked fine. It's simple. I looked at it in comparison to the Lower Russian River and what they were discussing. It seems to me they have bylaws and their policy and procedures are a little more, I don't know, in depth than these. I think the less is perhaps better. And I would be in favor of going ahead and adopting this. And if we find problems with it, we can always make it, amend it.
Right. Elise.
I'd just like to note that the communications plan is distinct from the bylaws and policies and procedures. The Lower Russian River MAC is also now taking up the bylaws and the policies and procedures and working on those, because the Sonoma Coast MAC and the Lower Russian River MAC were basically handed a packet to start with. Mm-hmm. And the communications plan was developed in addition to as a way to describe how the council members interact with the community, that the council members should be going out and talking with their community and bringing that information back and sharing it with the community, and sort of the format and ways to do that. So that is in addition to the bylaws and the policies and procedures, not instead of.
Okay.
I can hit the outline points for the public if you feel that's a good idea. Why don't I do it as quickly as I can? It's called the Community Engagement and Outreach Plan for the Coast Municipal Advisory Council. It has a purpose statement. It covers council member responsibilities, the duties of the MAC, soliciting public input, steps for after receiving public input. Implementation would include distribution goal strategies, and posting the meeting dates and all,
También por publicarlas. Hay un punto importante, es que todo el material está disponible en línea y se ha traducido de manera electrónica. Es una versión muy rápida, pero
The communications plan is available online as part of the council packet. So anyone who would like to review it and make any comment or suggestion, just because we've adopted it doesn't mean that that we are not open to suggestion in the future for improving. So please feel free to go online to the, you'll find the council member packet in the Sonoma Coast MAC page on the County of Sonoma website under Linda Hopkins sections.
yeah, so do we have any comments out there? Or do we open it for comments from the public, or I don't know.
You could ask for a motion, or you could look to comments from the.
I have a suggestion. I mean, maybe sort of the way that you grouped A and B into one piece, maybe do all C, D, E, and F together. And then if you need to do public comment, that might be the right time.
Okay, good. Because we Nance is muted.
Nance, hold on. All right, Nance, I'm going to let you do it yourself.
Sorry. I said it's always like you and I trying to unlock the car door at the same time. Sorry. But just because the communication, maybe I'm wrong here, doesn't the communication plan need a motion to approve?
Yeah.
Do we want to just move ahead and get a motion and get that approved if you're feeling like the board is at a point to do that?
That's what I'd like to do. So I'm calling for a motion to approve. There first. Jay. And Marty is a second. All those in favor?
I have a question.
Please.
Okay, there's just a typo, the last sentence, 5C. Ensure that all MAC materials, it's written in all lowercase. Needs to be fixed.
Okay.
Should probably say CMAC.
Did you get that, Nat?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was it.
5C right at the end.
Right at the end.
Got it.
So we have a first and second. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Wait a minute.
And opposed?
Two opposed? Did I see two opposed?
I don't think so. I think there was.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I hear a voice.
Yeah, I had a comment.
Oh,
How do I?
Is that Debbie?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Am I muted?
No, we hear you.
Okay. I just felt that under B, council member responsibilities, the use of the term advisory topics really bothers me. It's capitalized, it's used several times. And as it's defined here, it includes anything. And I would not, at least don't capitalize it. Make it, if it includes any issue brought to the council by an ad hoc subcommittee, it is not limited. And it's just misleading to me.
So where do we stand? We passed it, but
You passed it. It's okay. We can still change it sometime if we want to.
so
I
by,
just wanted to register a minor little,
if we took
it just doesn't seem right to use that as a major thing when you have defined it so broadly that it is anything.
Okay, noted.
It's so noted.
Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we can move on to land use events permit process. This is a draft because I feel that being such a interactive and busy process, that we should form an ad hoc committee to review it. But this was really born out of discussions with Linda's staff and from the marathon, the desire to get involved in the permitting process early on. And so this is attempting to do that without encumbering the timeline, but giving us voice. And maybe more importantly is to develop relationships with the event planner of applicants, so that we develop what I call ethical tourism, or a pack it in, pack it out attitude, and that we develop good relationships over time. I assume that all the representatives have had a chance to review it. And so I suggest that we form an ad hoc committee to review it and to report back in 2 months at our next public meeting, and we'll decide whether we want to adopt it at that time. Any comments, please, from the representatives? Okay, so we need 4 people for the ad hoc committee. I'll be one. And any other?
Me?
Kathy?
I'll do it.
Okay. 2 more. It's Wanda, yes. And Jay, does that do it?
Yeah, and Scott, were you thinking that you might chair the ad hoc, or do you want to look for a volunteer in the group to be the chair?
I don't mind sharing it, but if somebody would like to, I think it's good experience getting you ready. Anybody of those 4 care to chair that ad hoc committee? I see no hands. I'll do it.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay. So we'll arrange to go over this shortly. We'll get in touch. I'll reach out to everybody. So then we have the TIF priorities and process. And we didn't post the right version of the TIF. It's slightly different from the overall funding criteria down. There are a few additional items and some different verbiage. So I pulled the TIF ad hoc committee members to see if they wanted to table it and correct it and bring it back next time. I should mention that the TIF funds are largely exhausted, so we wouldn't be delaying any funds. Or we can motor through it, but looking at the clock, I recommend that we table it till the next meeting with the corrections. Any comment from the reps? And I move to call it motion to table. I have a first.
I have.
Kathy, is that a comment or a vote? Or Kathy's first?
It's a vote.
Okay, and second is Marty?
Motion.
Of the motion.
Motion, yes.
And vote by raising your hand in approve. And Jay, we can't see your hand if it's up.
I don't know if I can even vote on this, even though it's just moving it to a different time. My organization does go after these funds, so I'm just going to.
So you're staying, okay. So, and opposed? And an abstention. Are you abstaining, Jay? Yes, one abstention. All right. So moving on, we have let's see. I would like to set a new agenda setting process that's more open, as transparent and inclusionary. I wrote a very quick description. I'll just read it real quick. In the interest of better transparency and inclusion, we will end the ad hoc agenda setting process. In its place, we will set agendas as follows. Prior to the end of each MAC public meeting, MAC representatives will have an opportunity to offer agenda topics for future consideration. The public will also have an opportunity to offer agenda topics for future consideration. District 5 staff will record and manage these. When an agenda is being formed, District 5 staff, the chair and vice chair will review offered topics and current events affecting the coast and set the agenda. When we return to hosted public meetings, the hosting representatives will be consulted. If a representative or member of the public wishes to offer topics between meetings, they may do so by presenting it directly to District 5 staff, and it will be included for consideration. The intent is to gather a broad set of topics that represent the needs and concerns of our community and move items to an agenda in a meaningful way. That's what I'm proposing. Any comments from the representatives? Marty?
Scott, I don't have a problem with what you read, but could you send us that text or whatever text we end up with after incorporating people's comments, so we personally have a record of what it is before the next meeting?
Certainly, I'll forward this to everybody.
Thank you.
And Kathy?
I think that's a great process. You're making it be a little more inclusive, not only with us, but with the public, and also a little more fluid. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. So that's the new policy, and I'll forward this to all the representatives this evening.
We don't need, is this not an action item? I'm just not sure.
Elise can comment on whether, I don't think it's an action item. Is that right?
Okay.
You don't?
Okay.
It's policy.
Okay.
It should be.
Ask at least.
No.
The chair has the authority to set ad hoc committees, to bring them together or to take them away. And so this is a decision the chair is making with the collaboration of the council.
And I am open to every idea. So please.
Okay, I just wanted to check.
Marty.
Well, my comment is, why shouldn't we adopt it? And then we'll go on record of having all the MAC members adopt this agenda setting process. Because last year, we didn't ever have a vote about the agenda setting process. And it just kind of evolved independent of any discussion. And I would feel happier if, since we all seem to have no problem with it, why don't we just pass a motion and adopt it? And I'll move that we adopt it.
Second.
Brooks?
Marty, before you move forward with the vote, Scott, there is somebody who has a hand raised. So I guess normally you would do a public comment round before an action. And so I'd like to suggest that we recognize the person before you take the action to vote.
Yeah, I don't think we can vote because it's not been on the posted. Is that right, Elise? We would have to put it on the next meeting's agenda and vote on it. Is that right? So please.
Okay. Jeff Smith, you're able to speak at this time. Jeff, you're still muted. I'm going to unmute you, or you may have to press something on your screen, but you're showing as talking permitted but muted, so. Jeff, I'm going to wait, and can you unmute yourself on your screen? Okay, Jeff, I'm going to try to unmute you again. Okay, there you go.
Can you get me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you now. Please start over.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think that you need to wait on this because I think it's an attempt to not have enough speakers on the subject. Former resident and still financially involved in Jenner and a member of the Monterey Fire Board. I think this needs to be put off for another vote until all the parameters that what you're proposing is actually published so people can read it.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's the final comment at this time related to this. Thanks.
Elise, are we bound by anything? Can we have a vote and next time and put it in the packet without setting precedents and whatnot?
Yes.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. We can go, I have on the agenda to ask for ideas. We can go ahead and do that too. And so do I have a motion to table this till next meeting and put it in the packet and have a vote? So Che, is that a first?
I have a comment. Can that motion include using this process for the next meeting? Otherwise, we have no agenda setting process for the next meeting.
Well, we have the existing one.
The existing one is not transparent.
I know, that's what we're trying to fix, but we're also trying to bring additional transparency by posting it in the packet and having a vote next time. I think we just have to cycle through one more. Elise?
While there are comments on both sides, I think that it's quite clear that the council members feel like this process is going to be more transparent and an improvement over the current process. And I think that there is nothing within the bylaws which stop us from having a vote at this point and adopting it. And if someone wants to propose something different and consider it and discuss it another time, we can do that. But at this point, we don't want to be without an agenda setting process. And I think that it should be done right now. That's my opinion.
Okay, so, well, we have a motion, Dibby.
If we're going to vote right now, I need to hear it again.
Okay.
It's.
I'll read it carefully and slowly. And we do have a motion on the floor. So in the interest of better transparency and inclusion, we will end the ad hoc agenda setting process. It is in its place. We will set agendas as follows. Prior to the end of each MAC public meeting, MAC representatives will have an opportunity to offer agenda topics for future consideration. The public will also have the opportunity to offer agenda topics for future consideration. District 5 staff will record and manage these. When an agenda is being formed, District 5 staff, the chair and vice chair, will review offered topics and current events affecting the coast and set the agenda. When we return to hosted public meetings, the hosting representative or representatives will be consulted. If a representative or member of the public wishes to offer topics between meetings, they may do so by presenting it directly to District 5 staff, and it will be included for consideration. The intent is to gather a broad set of topics that represent the needs and concerns of our community and move items to an agenda in a meaningful way. Was it Jeff that made the comment? I think, if I recall his name, from Jenner. If we do adopt this, he could offer an agenda item at the end of this meeting, which could be taken up at the next meeting to modify it if we need to. But we have a motion on the floor to postpone it. Do we vote on that, or can we withdraw that?
We had an existing motion that I made to pass it, and that was seconded. Yeah. And I have not withdrawn my motion.
Okay, so
and
then
I'm not a Roberts, well, we don't use Roberts rules. I'm not a parliamentarian expert.
But if there's a motion on the table, we have to address that motion. Marty's motion.
Another motion.
Did we end up with two motions?
Yes. I think Che made a motion.
Okay.
And I don't know if Che's motion was seconded or not.
I didn't see a second, but I did see Shay's motion. And your motion was to approve, right?
To approve. So
well, that was my motion as well.
All right. Can we just start over?
Sure. I could also be Marty's second if that helps.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what are we voting on? Are we voting to postpone or are we voting to adopt? And that's my question.
I moved to adopt.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there a first?
Marty's. Yeah.
First, and the second is Brooks.
Brooks.
Okay. And so those in favor, raise your hand. And Jay, I don't see your hand. So, and those opposed? Okay, one opposed and abstentions. Was there two opposed? Okay.
Cal was also opposed.
All right.
Cal,
So,
can you just clarify for the record, were you for or opposed?
Jay, were you in favor of adoption or opposed to adoption?
I was opposed to adoption. I wanted to move it.
Okay.
No,
I'm sorry,
I'm
because
not
of the lag
opposed. I'm in favor.
I just wanted to
My
clarify.
computer is throwing me off.
So I think
Do you want to give us a
Are we
thumbs
now?
up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up for approve, thumbs down for don't approve.
Okay.
Okay, so
He's in
Cal
approve.
said approve and it was just lag that was staying on. Thank you, Cal.
One opposition and
Motion.
okay. So the motion carries. I encourage the questioner to offer something at the agenda items portion of the agenda. Call for it. So, now we'll move on to council member staff reports and staff reports. Of the representatives, does anybody have something to report by raising your hand, and try to keep it to a minute or two if possible. So Marty.
Are you skipping the appointment of 2020 ad hoc committee, or are you going to do that after the staff report?
I will, since I started this, I'll do it after the staff.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So Che, did you have your hand up? Oh, Brooks did.
Yeah, so basically one of the things that I've been working on and need to communicate a little more with Linda and some of the other supervisors is our YSPOA funding, which is funding for at-risk youth and vocational programming. HSD, Human Services Department, has decided to have only one vendor for that program. And it used to be split out to all of the areas. Our vendor used to be West County Community Services. who already struggle to serve the coast. But now that vendor is SAY, Social Advocates for Youth out of Santa Rosa, and I just don't see them being able to effectively serve our young people that are in need of those added supports. So just letting everybody know that that is on the table and something that I'm not particularly happy with.
Thank you. Brooks, did you? Yes, Brooks.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention in Bodega Bay, Ken Tam from the Regional Parks Planning Office came to Bodega Bay to update us on the Bodega Bay Trail for Bikes and Pedestrians. And I don't know if I mentioned that was February 21st. The community was very supportive of his report for the second phase of this trail. And so Kathy Beck wrote a great letter, and the two of us signed it as MAC representatives in support of the second phase of the coastal trail going through Bodega Bay.
Is there a status report? Where is that?
Well, you know how slowly things go. We've supported it, so we're hoping, I think what they are now doing is trying to get the funding to take care of it. And then we'll go into phase 3 and 4.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way to send a copy of that letter, and maybe we should include it under correspondence? Because did you write it as MAC reps?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. Yeah.
Actually, I thought I'd sent it, but you know what's happened between then and now? A lot. So I could resend it to Elise.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'd sent it to Elise because she said we could just do it as the MAC reps and not have the whole MAC, this whole coastal MAC endorse it. But yeah, I'll send it again to Elise and she can distribute it.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. And then I wanted to add, if I could, that Bodega Bay is fire protection district is still trying to consolidate with Sonoma County Fire. And I'm not really sure. It seems like there's some confusion. I'm hoping the county is still backing this because I know Russian River was successful, I believe, in doing this. So I'd love to hear from Linda. If she's still
not
here.
General comment time. This is council reports. If you have a specific something to report on, we finished with questions.
Okay.
If you have miscellaneous things to ask about, ask me afterwards, but we have some things to get through here.
Okay. I'll ask at the end. Thanks.
Any other reports? Okay, I have a few things, very quick. I wanted to thank Caltrans is currently removing trees in the right-of-way in the Fort Ross area, and it's making a difference. And so that's going on. And also, I wanted to dispel a rumor of the cell tower going in at Salt Point Park. It was rumored that emergency services weren't going to be allowed on it. The truth is that there has been no change, and that state and county services will be allowed on that tower. Due to engineering changes, August is the current date that we hope to have it up and running. So those are my two things. Oh, one other thing. We've noticed that during this tourist moratorium in our area that their first responders calls have dropped 50%. And that if you look at the breakdown, it's really park related. And so it underscores the impact that parks, when it is open, has on our emergency services responders. That's all. So last call. Anyone else have a report? Elise, please.
Are you ready for the staff report?
So we are, let me do the sunset ad hocs really quickly.
Okay.
We were going to sunset the TIF, but I think I'll leave it for another month until the document is approved. And the agenda setting, we're ending that, and as we've just discussed. And the LCP ad hoc, is there anything to report, or because I'm about to end it? And maybe when it becomes more active again and public, we can revisit that. Please.
May I make a comment? The Sea Ranch followed up with the county people working on the LCP,
Yes.
and they're intending to have another draft out, I think, in the late summer.
Yeah, I think Elise is going to talk about this.
Okay, good.
Okay, anything else? So we're in review. TIF is still on, agenda's ended, and LCP is ended. And I'd like to create and appoint an emergency preparedness ad hoc and a land use and events ad hoc. Did we already set that one up? Didn't we? So the emergency preparedness, Marty.
I'd like to, our alternate member, Paul Plakos, is not here tonight because he is a volunteer firefighter and they're having they're having their first training tonight. And he's willing to serve on the emergency preparedness ad hoc. I think he'd be a great addition in addition to being a firefighter. He, for several years, was head of the Sea Ranch's security committee. So he has a lot of background and he's willing to do it.
And you remind me that alternates can serve on ad hocs.
Yeah.
And so keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, okay.
So we have Paul, yeah.
Paul. And Kathy, don't you serve on the fire, somehow in your fire district?
Well, I did for 15 years, but I'd be happy to do it again.
You're on, I just noticed that in your biography. And I also want regional spread. So
Right.
Ranch, Bodega, Bay, and as chair, I can be on it unless there are better candidates. And so one more, at least. One more, please. Any volunteers, or are there any alternates in the, Wanda. Okay, thank you, Wanda. You have, you're a great resource for this topic.
And Scott, who was chosen as the chair?
You want to make Paul the chair?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we let these four people meet together and decide who's going to be the chair?
Okay, I'm fine with
It's
that.
not Paul's fault he's not here today.
Right.
Tonight. I didn't warn him that he might end up being chair.
Oh.
Okay, I will do it if no one wants to, but I do encourage other people to step up.
Well, at least to get the first meeting started, Scott, maybe do you want to take the reins for that then?
I'll take the responsibility to get people pulled together, and then if we decide to change hats, we can. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got that. So now staff report, Elise.
Thank you. Okay, so first of all, reporting on the LCP. Oh gosh, I had it pulled up. Where is it? Oh, I spoke with Permit Sonoma today about this. Their process on the website is that they were going to have a new version out for the summer and then have a coastal commission in the fall, but they've switched that around. So here's what they're doing. We're working on an updated and detailed schedule, which we'll have out in a few days. The summary now is that we're going to the Planning Commission in September with the revised draft. And the revised draft is reformatted in response to all the public comment that came out during that last process. The Board of Supervisors review is planned by the end of the year. The revised draft will be available prior to any public hearings. That's the summary of the schedule. We'll have a more detailed and updated summary soon. The second thing I wanted to report on is the TIF funding that happened, that was given out in the last, it was given out in the last month. It seems like every day is like 2 weeks these days. There's so much going on. But we had been discussing the TIF funding for the 2019-2020 year annual, and the public health emergency happened, and it's Linda's discretion to provide that TIF. So we put out a grant application process, and we gave out TIF grants to the following people, but also I just wanted to say that there are some applicants that did not receive TIF funding, but applied, and we're finding funding for them in additional ways. So for example, Coastal Seniors is doing food delivery in the North Coast to Sonoma and Mendocino. And we were able to fund them through a contract with our food committee through the Sonoma County. So if someone didn't receive a TIF grant, they may have received funding in other ways. So Bodega Bay Area Chamber of Commerce received $5,000 for small business support. The Russian River Chamber of Commerce received $7,500 to help businesses set up online. TLC Child and Family Services, $15,000 for basic support for families. And when I say basic support, we were really looking for food and shelter as basic support across the board. River to the Coast Children's Services, which provides services to families, $20,000 in basic support. The Russian River Alliance received $10,000 for food delivery services. The Center for Social and Environmental Stewardship received $10,000 for the youth program, and is going to be getting a second $5,000 for a food delivery program. Sonoma County Farm Trails received $20,000 for their food programs. Sebastopol Center for the Arts, $15,000 for artist support. Friends of Rio Nido, $5,000 for small business support. Main Stage West, $5,000 for online production support. The Lazy Bear Fund, $20,000 of food provision from local restaurants. Pets Are Loving support, $5,000 for pet supplies and delivery to patients. They particularly serve AIDS patients and had lost their mechanisms for providing that support to AIDS patients. West County Community Service received 2 grants, one for food programs and emergency shelter, and a second for a homeless shower project that will help sanitation. Russian Riverkeeper, on behalf of Clean River Alliance, $5,000 for food service. Latino service providers, $25,000 for basic support. North Bay Organizing Project, on behalf of UndocuFund, $25,000 for undocumented workers basic support. As you can see, we're taking quite seriously the challenge of Latinx communities that have been bearing the brunt of this public health emergency. My next topic is the Fire Town Hall. We held a Fire Town Hall a few weeks back. These are just very challenging times that we're trying to address fire on top of public health emergency. I know that when I started the year, I was hoping not only that we wouldn't have any disasters in 2020, but that we wouldn't have one right after the other. Our biggest fear is having 2 at the same time, and yet we're looking at that. On the other hand, we have so many experts working to keep us safe, and we're having constant updates and upgrades to our disaster planning. We've become quite good at this. And are working quite hard on emergency management. So the communication systems for early warning and operational upstaffing are in process now. The alert and warning system, we have adopted a widespread camera system so that we can be looking for fire faster and more accurately. And at that point, the operational upstaffing will bring people in to watch for fire and to help get the news out. The Emergency Operations Center has set up, oh, sorry, I got that wrong, and they've corrected me before. The Disaster Operations Center has gone into contract with radio, TV, and newspapers in order to broadcast the information for the alert system. The county sheriff and the disaster relief center has been working on a county-wide evacuation system. After the evacuation, what we're really working on within this pandemic is sheltering. So they're going through things such as, instead of having food lines, we'll have food packaged. What kind of sanitation will we have during sheltering in place if we have evacuation? What kind of alternative sheltering plans can we open up? Because we're going to need a lot more sheltering locations, given the fact that we can't pack people together the way that we used to. So just really, if you want to watch that full town hall, it is available on Supervisor Linda Hopkins' page, Facebook page, under videos. And it gives you an overview of all the different things that are happening at this point. I'll be following up with more information for people to be working on in the briefings. This is an important time for all of us to take responsibility for vegetation management, personal home hardening work. And as we discussed earlier, when someone brought up the question of Fort Ross vegetation management, the county's working quite hard right now on vegetation management. That's something that is permissible under the public health order. So go to SoCo Report It or email to TPW. They are very responsive at this point to your saying, we need vegetation management on this road between here and here. You know, take pictures, be very specific, give them the information they need to get crews out there. So we'll be sending out more information in Linda's newsletter. If you haven't signed up for that, go to Linda's website page and sign up for that newsletter. But we'll be doing sending out personal safety plans, alert locations, and more information. So those were my 3 topics for the staff report.
Thank you. Moving on to our last item, and a new practice, a call for future agenda items. We'll collect these and they'll be referenced when setting agendas. As you know, events external to us often take over the agenda, and so with that understanding, we have a list of issues to go to, and any representatives have suggestions for future agenda items, please raise your hand. Cal, please. You're muted, Cal.
Cal, can you unmute yourself?
How's that? How's that now? Okay. Just a thought that we should probably move into an update each meeting from fire officials as we move into the season here.
So you want to have updates about what's happening at the parks? Is that what you're saying?
With fire, yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't have updates. I'm saying that it would be good to have fire people at each of our meetings to give us updates.
Okay, each meeting have fire people present to keep us apprised and to answer questions.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Kathy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, but one of my concerns is sort of a moot point right now. I've brought it up before.
Well, bring it up because the.
Okay, I'll bring it up. How can we maintain sustainable tourism on our overburdened coast? I think that needs to be an ongoing dialogue, even though right now it's a moot point.
Well, but it's not because it's a long-term point.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Brooks?
I think we need to look at housing. There's numerous aspects. This new regulation, the ADUs, you know.
Would you focus that on ADUs or would you
could along with affordable housing,
okay,
housing for local employees.
So workforce housing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These are long been a problem. Okay, was that it?
No?
Brooks, no, I mean Brooks, are you finished, Brooks?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, Dibby, please.
Okay. How about doing some visioning of the post-COVID world on the coast?
Okay.
It's not going to be the same.
So we need to imagine